This video is sponsored by Aura.
Hello angel faces, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. Today I want to talk about witchfluencers. I want to talk about witches with influence and a little bit of the thoughts and feelings I've been having recently about the role of people with clout and visibility who have a message and have products and services, etc., and what that clout is being used for and what it could or should be used for. I'm really interested in any and all comments on this. I don't mind whether you agree or disagree, whatever it is. I'm just sharing what's been in my brain box, and I'm interested in dialogue, so please don't think there's any kind of culty vibes going on over here. You are fully welcome to have your own opinions, but I would like to share mine for the record.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Lately, I've just been thinking a lot about some of the influence that is amassed by very public professional witches during this time of another massive cultural resurgence of popularity for witchcraft. And I've been thinking about how that influence is used, how it could be used, and how it is either harnessed and it is activated for good, or it is kind of demeaned or downplayed or squandered, you know? And I've been really interested in not only how that pertains to the witchfluencers and the witch resources that I buy into and that I enjoy, but also I've been thinking about it in terms of me as someone that has any kind of influence or any kind of audience in witchcraft as well. So there's layers to this for me, and it definitely gets a little bit murky, but there's definitely some opinions that I have formed and definitely some worries that I do have. Obviously, there is some portion of like the legacy of modern witchcraft that is being written by witches that are proud, public, professional, visible. You know, they have a message. They either work full-time or part-time doing things within the realm of witchcraft, and I am one such witch. Obviously, I sell readings, I sell sessions. This very video itself is sponsored, so I know that I have the potential to be part of any problems or solutions that we can come up with. And I know that I feel like it's obvious why I would have my place in this kind of dialogue. If we are contributing to the journey that witchcraft is taking into the future, and if we are contributing to the actual shaping of the spiritual practices of witches that come onto the path, and if we are contributing to the perception that people have of witchcraft when they come across it, either because they want to write an article about it, because they want to research it more, right? If all of these things are the case, that we are contributing in that way, what should that mean? And what does that need to tell us about what our responsibility might be for the privilege that we have of being those kind of like vocal people that get to make money doing what we do and get an audience around what we do? The witchfluencers that have the most clout at the moment, they're being invited to do interviews with mainstream publications. They're being invited to work with businesses, you know, they're being invited to speak on behalf of witchcraft as a whole. That's quite weighty. That has quite a lot of gravitas, I think. You know, I don't think that can be overlooked. Witchfluencers are becoming a touchstone for the outside world and a portal through which they understand witchcraft as it exists today. And that is both amazing and concerning. And I would like to talk about it a little bit. I think it should be very obvious to anyone with more than 2 brain cells that reach and visibility and a willing audience to listen to your ideas, those things are power. And I think for me, as someone that's a consumer of witchcraft content, I'm very interested in what is done with the power that is cultivated. And I'm very interested in looking at whether or not that power is doing anything to shake the table. Is it doing anything to make things more inclusive? Is it doing anything to develop awareness amongst witches of what we might do to be of service or to understand how our craft is connected to the wider world? And that really is important to me. I think for me, whenever I look at a witch that has a great deal of clout, a great deal of influence, so much power, so much reach, I'm interested in whether or not they are using that power in any way, or whether they are directing it in the service of apathy and silencing tactics and the status quo and tons of needless consumerism and the idea that witchcraft just stops at aesthetics. Does their message promote conformity and self-interest and subservience to the status quo, or is it doing something different? Is it doing something interesting? Is it doing something that has real meaning and real depth? Like, those are things that I'm interested in and that I do want to see from witchcraft teachers that I'm gonna follow and that I'm gonna engage with and that I'm gonna buy things from. There's a witch on Instagram that has a really popular account. We're talking one of those really bloated, clouty accounts that just has tons and tons of followers. And she made a video on Instagram, a reel, a month or 2 ago that boiled my blood.
Please don't play with me right now. Just, no, that's it, please. Let's not, please.
I will not be showing you the reel here today, and I will not be name dropping the witch because it looks very much as though she has deleted that video now. So she obviously thought better of keeping that reel up. It did draw some criticism from a lot of other witches. I'm not the only one whose blood boiled, but I do want to explain to you a breakdown of what was in that reel, because I do think that the perspective that she shared in that reel is actually really much more widespread than just her. There are a lot of witches with a lot of clout and a lot of influence who share this perspective. And it's a perspective that I look at it and I wonder, why is this perspective still here? Why are we still promoting this and saying this is the direction that we want to take witchcraft in? Obviously, I'm not saying that she uniformly speaks for everybody with this message that I'm about to talk about, but it's just like she has so much influence, right? Like she has so many followers. She has a book on the way. So it's just like, you know, when this kind of perspective comes up, it's frustrating. So basically in this reel, this Witchfluencer said that she is asked quite a lot at the moment by her followers, why don't you talk about anything that's going on in the world? Why don't you speak on, you know, like climate issues or fascism, the rise of fascism, or like, you know, ICE raids or genocide, or like any of these things that are going on in the world, you know? Why don't you use your influence to talk about that stuff? And she said, talking about bad things and negative energies only matches those bad things and negative energies, and it puts you on the same level as the bad things that are happening. Like giving it attention just basically fuels it and it feeds it. So what I'm doing is creating this high vibe space where none of those negative things can get in and ruin our intentionality and ruin what we're doing. So that's the reason why she does not fundraise, and she doesn't try and raise awareness, or she doesn't talk about anything that's going on outside her own window. It's basically just her in a witchy house talking about witchy things that she does that you can do too. And that is what she wants to use her millions of followers to talk about. And I could understand why this boiled a few other witches' blood aside from my own, because now is just really not the time to be falling back into this tired old rhetoric, this idea that, you know, we don't focus on the bad things and then that doesn't feed the bad things. We don't do anything to try to, you know, like deconstruct or do away with or address or confront or heal the bad things. We just don't talk about them. That's the extent of our involvement, and that's what we need to do as witchfluencers. And I was like, well, this is not really passing my vibe check, Missy. It's definitely possible for a witch to gain a massive amount of clout and influence, teaching other people how to create change without really being involved and invested in making change themselves in some of the most material and obvious ways that they could do so with the influence that they have, which is a clear form of power.
Power is always dangerous. It attracts the worst and corrupts the best.
It's really possible to hold some measure of power in your hands, to be able to direct people to something, educate people on something, even ask people to consider something, and completely throw that power away and still get yourself a juicy book deal and a lot of attention and a full-time business teaching people, you know, shilling people this idea of how to, you know, to create transformation and change, whilst not lifting a solitary fucking witchy finger to create transformation or change yourself. This is very possible. And this is very much happening. And it saddens me. I'm not going to lie. It does sadden me. Like ultimately, what I choose to do with my platform, it has got to be what is most important. And it's got to be where I keep my focus. But does it sadden me that people with so much more influence than I may ever have are the people that get to write the narratives like this, and are the people whose videos go viral in this way? I mean, why wouldn't it sadden me? Of course it fucking does. If I think about the way witchfluencers often sort of promote themselves, they promote themselves as individuals that are able to give us tools to be able to succeed and to be able to heal and all of this kind of thing, right? They promote themselves as spiritual teachers in some regard. They have something to say, they have a point of view, they want to give you assistance, right? Very often they are listening helpers, they are card slingers, or they have books, or they have resources. And I can tell you now that if I went to any listening helper, whether it was a spiritual healer, tarot reader, therapist, whatever, and I started talking to them about either my personal bereavement, my struggles that I've been through my life, or if I was talking to them about collective stuff like the ICE raids that are going on right now, the rise of hateful rhetoric, right, climate issues, genocide. If at any point that person that I was talking to said to me, just zip it, because you're making it worse, Talking about it is making it worse. You're giving it power. You're giving it energy. Let's not talk about it. I would fucking never trust that person again. I would never work with them again. In fact, if any of my friends did that, if any of my friends turned around and said to me, like, let's not talk about that because we're bringing the low vibes in the more we talk about it, I would instantly be like, okay, that gives me data that is really important about your ability to be able to empathize, to be willing to hold any kind of space whatsoever, and to be willing to be real about what's real. And that tells me something about where I need to place you in my life. It's just cold. It's cold. It's unempathetic. It's also ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous thing to say and a ridiculous thing to believe. I don't see why I should see witchfluencers as any different, right? Like if they are influencing me in terms of how to use my witchcraft and how to really empower myself and how to walk my sovereign path and how to like all of these things, why am I going to trust them to be able to help me with anything if they can't actually hold space for collective pain? If they can't say, yeah, like shit's fucked up right now for a lot of people, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how to do some shielding. Let's talk about how to do some grounding. Let's talk about how to utilize our witchcraft in a material way that makes sense for people going through things. Even if I, a coddled rich witchfluencer, am not going through those same things, let's hold the space. Let me hold the space, right? If a witchfluencer can't do that, what can they do? What are they actually doing? What would I trust them to do? You know, what would I pay them money to do? Probably not much.
We call it reading or throwing shade.
I mean, maybe you don't expect your witchfluencers to fundraise or awareness raise or talk about issues that are going on. But at the very least, do you expect your witchfluencers to say something a little bit more empathetic than just don't talk about it and don't look at it? Just don't talk about it, don't look at it. Because I just think that's so weak. Why are we still feeding into this narrative? Why are we still giving so much praise and so much approval to this narrative? Witchcraft is so much tougher than that. Witchcraft is muscle and bone and nerve and sinew. It's ready for fucking war. It's ready to do something. It's ready to transform something. It's access to alchemy. It's access to truth and vision and fire. And I just feel like, don't look at it, don't talk about it, close the curtains and let's all go back to our little witchy bubble. Is just so much of a like disservice to what I know the truth of witchcraft to be, which is just so much more useful. Real. Nothing has ever been sorted out by people staying silent on it, right? Silence empowers predators. Silence props up complicity. Silence does nothing to challenge corporations that are defiling the earth. Silence doesn't provide any comfort to those who need to be able to tell their stories of trauma and pain, who've been overlooked for so long. Silence, I think, very much promotes cultures that are top-down autonomy and that thrive on fear and control. Okay, I just feel like silence when it comes to talking about shit that's fucked up has never been the answer to anything. Darlings, if there's one thing that I'm a fan of, it's being able to reach for tools when I'm feeling distressed, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm decentered, when my nervous system needs a little bit of love. And that's where Aura comes in for me. It's like my wellness version of Spotify, where I can collect all of my different amazing tracks together. So there's always something that I can reach for my inner work. And when I'm feeling sort of like stressed or like I need to decompress, there's so many different things on there. There's CBT stuff, there's sound baths, there's sleep stories, there's live coaching. It's incredible. You can track your mood on there. There's all kinds of different things that you can do. And so it's almost like your little check-in with yourself. You open the app and you've just got a wealth of different things at your disposal. I really, really value the sleep stories because I do struggle getting to sleep some evenings. I love all the shadow work content. I love the podcasts. I mean, you can imagine for me, there's a bunch of different things that really make the difference and flick my particular switch. I really love the range with Aura. I've tried other apps like it in the past, but there isn't the range of different things. And the algorithm works to understand your preferences and put things in front of you that it knows that you've looked at before, so you can check out more of those same things. So it's really intuitive like that, which I appreciate. If it sounds useful, then you can get started on a free trial with Aura today by using the link in my description, and it will also give you 25% off if you decide to go ahead and join. Thank you so much, Aura, for sponsoring, and let's get back to the video. I think there are just too many witchfluencers out there who promote the idea of staying silent and dismissing real world issues as an excuse to keep things high vibe, right? As though it's going to ruin the vibe if we just talk about stuff and level with each other about what the fuck is going on. There's so many times in the human story where witchcraft has been so inextricably linked to resistance and survival and empowerment against great odds that I can't help but think that silence in times of tyranny and in times of pain is a misuse of influence. I definitely do not expect witchfluencers to derail their entire fucking business and their message to become online political pundits, right? I don't want to do that. That is not what I came here to do. I'm not a political pundit and I don't want to be. But I do expect that witchfluencers who have the attention of thousands and thousands of people would think to once in a while occasionally direct that attention towards like anything that matters, anything that means anything that actually affects the lives of like real people, real animals, the real planet, whatever it is, to behave as though the power of that kind of influence is not there, or as though there's no responsibility for them to use it. That would be something that I would expect maybe from someone who does family vlogging or somebody who talks about clothes online or whatever. But it's not something that I expect from spiritual teachers, from people who profess to be able to promote spiritual ideas and teach spiritual practices. I have a much higher standard, much higher quality control for people that have placed themselves into those positions. And I think that's fair. I also honestly just find it a little bit odd over the course of time if a witch with a platform and strong messaging never talks about anything that's going on outside of just literally their practice. Like they never link their practice to anything that's going on in their own community, that's going on nationally, that's going on globally. They never talk to their audience, to people in their audience who might be worried sick about things and like address that with them. I just feel like, how can you be professing to be so plugged in spiritually when you are time and time again showing that you are disengaged materially?
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Because like I said, you know, some witchfluencers might live very sort of like coddled lives. They don't have a lot of problems of some of the people that might be watching their content. They're not thinking all the time about what's going on in the wider world because things are pretty much hunky-dory in their reality, right? Like, you know, being distracted from what's going on in the wider world and not feeling moved to talk about it is a point of privilege. But at the very least, I would expect that a spiritual influencer of some kind would be thinking about speaking to things that are bothering their audience or worrying their audience. Like, are they only wanting to speak to people with the exact same privileges as them? Or do they actually want to show people how to use witchcraft for resistance, you know, for justice? I feel like it's really missing. There's a chip missing when a witchfluencer has that much clout and that much visibility, but they're not even thinking about the fact that not everybody watching them is maybe like them. And why don't they want to help people to understand how witchcraft can be so useful for what they're going through in their reality, or how we can help others with a reality that we can't even imagine? If you have thousands of followers, if you have a book deal, if you have people liking, sharing, commenting, if you have viral shit, you have the power to change the conversation, to spark the conversation, to put resources in front of people, to ask people to consider how they might want to utilize their witchcraft in the service of other people and in the service of the planet in some way. That's a huge amount of potency. It's more than you probably think you have. Spiritual content can be political, it can be social, it can be ethical, it can be collective. It doesn't just need to be personal. And the idea that we would platform or pedestal people that insist vehemently that it is only personal and that there is nothing going on outside the window, like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, right? That worries me. I look at that and I just think, all right, who else can I give my time and attention to? Because this ain't it. This is not passing. This is not okay. I don't know. Ignoring suffering does not make it disappear. It literally just helps the privileged to further avoid it and keep themselves feeling more comfortable. I think, you know, not talking about bad things, that also is just, you know, wanting to maintain your sense of privilege without, you know, really engaging in what can be the true potency of spirituality. And it's wanting to not ruffle feathers and stay comfortable and keep making your coins without really putting spirituality to the test, you know, putting that pedal to the spiritual metal and seeing what can really be done when we come together and when we really, really focus on the things that have genuine meaning. And I'm not saying that shooting for personal abundance or shooting for personal healing isn't meaningful. I have made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos on how to do that, and I utilize those tools myself for my life, as I always will. But I just feel like without the collective piece, the The shadow work is incomplete. The abundance is incomplete. The integration, the self-actualization, all of it is incomplete. Another thing that I wanted to mention was that when followers go to a witchfluencer, like what happened in the case of this woman that made the Instagram reel, and they say, you know, why are you not speaking out on certain things? You have a huge amount of reach. You have a huge amount of influence, you know. What they're really saying to that witchfluencer in that moment is, why are we not seeing a display of your empathy? Right? Why are you not utilizing your platform, linking it to your empathy, and therefore maybe creating some spark of change and directing witchcraft in an empathetic direction, right? That's what's being asked for. So when the witchfluencer comes back and says, you know, it's low vibe to talk about low vibe things, and we don't do that here, we just ignore that. What they're kind of saying in that moment is that empathy is low vibe, and that emotions like grief and sadness and fear and concern for other people and concern for the planet are low vibe. They are negative, that there is something negative about that. Empathy is not low vibe and it's not bad energy. It's a behavioral compass. It is the heart of the spiritual journey. And it's also a stronghold during times of incredible shitstorms, as we are experiencing right now, my darlings, on planet Earth. And I know there's been many, many other times on planet Earth when such experiences have been occurring, but you know, when I'm watching like 100 and whatever thousand fucking people marching on the streets of London screaming hateful, racist slogans, as I did see just recently, when I see the ICE raids going on, like it's so terrifying. When I'm seeing like just the economic disparity, just like the people that are having to, you know, they can't afford rent, they can't afford their mortgages anymore, they can't afford food, they can't are worried about their kids staying home for school holiday because they're worried about being able to provide lunch, breakfast, lunch and dinner every day. Like, what the fuck, you know? There's so much that witchcraft can be, we can connect it with so many of these things that are happening. I know I'm rambling. This is like such a chatty video. Let me have some coffee. The power of coffee. At least no one's denying that. I don't see a single witchfluencer being down on coffee. I just see them like massively degrading and diluting the amount to which witchcraft can be used to solve anything material, which is a bother. But you know, more coffee. Let's put more coffee on it. If magic is about channeling energy for transformation, why can't we talk about transformation in the wider world? Why can't we talk about transformation as a collective? Why can't we talk about transformation as it pertains to the politics that write the policies that affect our material lives? Why is that taken out of the equation? Why are we pedestaling teachers that are saying like, yeah, absolutely take that out of the equation. We don't want to talk about that. Just close the curtains. Just close the curtains. That's what we do as witches.
You're so merged with your own selfishness. You don't even identify it as selfishness anymore.
Why? We can do so much fucking more than that, magically and like, you know, physically. Metaphysically and materially, damn it. Oh, I've got my little revolution fist out there. That was a mistake. Stop that. I'm not going to eagerly follow a witch personally and part with money for a witch personally that refuses to link their magical aims to anything going on outside their house. I just find that, I mean, fair enough if that's what one wants to do as an individual private witch. But when you put yourself on a platform, when you say, yeah, I have a platform, I have something to say, listen to me, I want more eyeballs on me, I want more attention, then when you come with that kind of energy, I must give that the side eye. I have to say, I'm afraid I must side eye that shit. I sat down this morning and I thought about some of the things that I really love seeing from witchfluencers, some of the things that I really see as green flags, and I wrote some of them down. So first of all, I wrote, I really love it when witchcraft influencers and people with platforms and messages actually name injustices and talk about how witches can engage with different injustices. Every single post that raises awareness, every single time we discuss magic in relation to resistance and the overthrow of injustice can spark ripple effects and can really put us in touch with our heart as witches. And I just find that to be really potent and beautiful. So I really love that. It's, like I said, it's not what I expect every single witchcraft post to be about on a witchfluencer's platform, and it's not on mine either. I post about a great many other things besides collective injustices, but I like to see some trace of that. I really love to see ethical empathy being modeled, so showing followers, showing your audience that it's okay to grieve, how to channel rage magically, how to reset the nervous system when you are in the middle of collective action or when you are, you know, giving support in your wider life, how to support without burning out, how to keep showing up consistently and being engaged, whilst also making sure that you're using your witchcraft as a self-healing and cleansing tool, right? All of those kinds of things. So ethical empathy, and empathy that is backed up by magical support, sharing resources, pointing to grassroots organizations, petitions, mutual aid funds, all that kind of thing. And also I really love witchfluencers that shout out other witchfluencers that are doing great things in that regard, and really make sure that they are inclusive with other witchfluencers who might not have the reach and might not have the voice, and bring them in and say, I've seen this person over here doing this, it's great, go look at it, right? This person over here has written this book, please give it some attention, right? So really thinking about how they can utilize their clout and their visibility to support other witches doing incredible things, and to support witches that may actually be in marginalized groups that would mean that they do not get the natural opportunities that often fall to like white, cis hair, able-bodied, thin, etc., right? All those boxes, box. Educating on history, I love this. It's not something that I do very much myself, but I love it when I see witchfluencers tie witchcraft to its radical roots, its resistance against oppression, and all the different ways that witchcraft has been used over time to address cultural narratives and discussions, and to be a part of the discourse, to educate on the history of oppression with witchcraft in different countries, to talk about how that's happening now, to educate. I mean, Cult Mother, I follow Cult Mother on Patreon. I know many of you will know her from her absolutely popping Instagram account where she does daily draws. Cult Mother has literally been on her Patreon teaching about things like the Irish resistance and the breakaway from British colonialism. She's talking about the history with oppression in different African countries, and why certain issues that are coming up in Sudan or Congo look like they do now. Like, she's putting a lot of effort into actually teaching herself the finer points of the history that she is then going on to give to others on her Patreon. Like, I just think that's so fucking awesome. I just think that's so potent, right? So I love that. Any kind of collective spell work, I love. I love the sharing of collective rituals for justice, for protection, for ongoing resistance, to show support to groups that are struggling with ongoing injustices, right? All of that. And I've put here also comforts their audience and connects with their audience's concerns instead of dismissing them, right? So there's enough dismissal of pain and trauma in the world already. We don't need that from our spiritual mouthpieces too. I know that many of you guys watching this are not witchfluencers, and you do not have a desire to become witchfluencers. You're going to be people that are witches, or you are mystics, you are witchcraft adjacent, but you do other things with your life, and you're not looking to try and get into a position like I've gotten myself into, where this is how I make my living. But you are going to be people that by and large are going to follow other witchy influencers, not just me, people that talk about this stuff, and people that make a living doing things that are connected to this stuff. And for you, I just wanted to say that money and clicks equals power and influence, right? And wherever we give our attention and whatever we keep feeding it to grows. So I think supporting witchfluencers that are not only consistently silent on absolutely everything, but also have the audacity to say that we should just close our eyes and ears to everything that's going on in the world. I think that's also a form of action that you're taking to demonstrate what kind of attitude about witchcraft you want to support, right? And like I said, and I will keep reiterating it, I'm not asking witchfluencers to become fucking political pundits. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a baseline level of engagement with what's going on in the world, just on anything at all, okay? Promote an organization that reforests, right? You don't even need to talk about human tragedy if you think it's too fucking divisive and you don't know enough about it. Talk about protecting trees. Surely every fucking witch wants to protect trees. Surely you want to show a fundraiser that's to do with forestation, or to do with like land protection, or like anything. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, just think about where you're putting your clicks and your money and your attention and your comments, and definitely think about where you spend your attention and your money, because it determines what thrives, right? And if you know you're constantly on the lookout for witchfluencers that actually do center the things that you really believe are important, and they do use some of their influence at least 5% of the time to speak up on things that are not just about what they're shilling or how great they are at something and how they can show you to be too, then that matters. I've written here, buying from, collaborating with, or boosting outspoken witchfluencers sustains the ones that are taking real risks with their platforms, talking about things like gigantic, pervasive, collective shadows in society that are causing real harm right now should not be risky for witchfluencers, but sadly it actually still is. And supporting marginalized witchfluencers whose businesses are on the line, not only because of what they say about their oppression, but because of who they are, which is the reason they're oppressed to begin with, and the reason they might not be platformed as much to begin with. supporting those witches is important, right? So I suppose what I'm asking for those of you who are not witchfluencers and have no desire to be is a little bit more consciousness around what you're supporting if you don't already have that level of consciousness a lot of the time. Just want to say before I end this video, like, I love me a fucking gorgeous aesthetic altar. I love me a discussion about tarot decks that we own. I love, okay? I'm not trying to, you know, fucking yuck your yum, or however that saying goes. I love that too. I love all of that. But they shouldn't be the ceiling. They shouldn't be where we stop. I really feel like witchcraft needs to be given its due for being absolutely mighty and being something that is game-changing and life-changing and deeply empowering and paradigm smashing. And if we just stick at you know, things that are just very, very comfortable, very, very safe, and not at all about collective change or confronting collective shadow, I just feel like that's only the half of it. And I don't want a witchcraft teacher who's only teaching the half of it, you know. I think substance is what makes spirituality feel alive and relevant, and witchfluencers who speak out to help their audiences grow in integrity, not just in their collection of tools or practices, you know, can really promote care, resistance, solidarity and power as part of witchcraft as well. So those are the notes that I made. Darlings, I've been wanting to make this video ever since I saw that reel on Instagram that pissed me off, and I've been like sort of going back and forth with it, but I'm glad that I made it. I'm glad I now have the opportunity to see what you guys think and feel about it, and whether or not the notion of the witchfluencers that are really, really mightily, cloutily platformed is linked to how we want the shaping of modern witchcraft to be, and what our role is in that as witchfluencers or consumers, or in my case both. I'm a consumer of witchfluencers and I am one, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. And you guys, as many of you know, I've been doing a lot of work with Witches for Palestine. I'm going to leave the link to the Instagram down below and the website, etc. Please get involved in all of our initiatives and take a look at what we've been doing. I just wanted to say that recently I told Imogen and Isha, who are the other two kind of like, you know, the founding members, if you will. Isha is the founder, but I guess all three of us were there at the inception. And I was talking to them about how many signs I've seen at protests that are linked to witchcraft, right? That talk about hexing and that talk about like spellcraft to smash the system, etc. And I've never seen so many signs and posters and stuff at protests that are witchcraft related, right? I know the witches in the crowd because their signs are very often, they have pentacles on them and witches on them. And I think that's really fucking cool, because honestly, I never used to connect my protest actions and my public sort of civil disobedience work with my witchcraft before the last couple of years or so. But I think that's really important, because I think it's great that witches want to be visible as witches at protests. I think that means something. I think it shows, it demonstrates something about who some witches are. And I think that's really powerful. I don't want the legacy of modern witchcraft on this timeline, the timeline that I lived in, to be determined by the centrists and the TERFs and the curtain closers and the spiritual bypassers. I want to be able to say, I'm here too, I'm a witch too, and I don't believe that's where it should end. And I do believe we can do more. And I do not want to be afraid of connecting witchcraft to social responsibility or to empathy, to feeling for others. So this is all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for listening. Get at me down in the comments. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring. Don't forget, you can go to my website, you can go to my Patreon, you can check out all that good shit. So much love. Mwah. And until next time, blessed be. Blessed be.